Welcome again to the Skillwork Forum. I'm Tim. As always, I'm joined with my partner, Brett, here from Skillwork. And on this podcast, we gather just to talk about trends, issues, really anything surrounding the skilled trades. And today, we're going to do the first part of two parts that we're going to talk about this topic of advanced manufacturing, smart manufacturing, the fourth industrial revolution. You may recall, if you subscribe to our podcast or you follow us, that the last most recent podcast, we had a special guest on with us, Jake Williams from AIM Services. Jake is an expert in manufacturing, particularly smart manufacturing, automation. He gave us a lot of great insights. He referred to an industry white paper that came out recently. We're going to kind of delve into that a little bit. So his insights and his experiences into the landscape of smart manufacturing initiatives really kind of piqued our interest, and we dove into this a little deeper. So we're going to continue on with that topic here today, and we'll do it in two parts just to break it up a little bit. But I mentioned the one paper, Brett, is a paper by Rockwell International. It was the State of Smart Manufacturing. A lot of great information. Jay kind of referred to it a couple of times. So we're going to take a look at that one. But right on its heels, another white paper came out called The State of Digital Transformation in Manufacturing by a company called L2L. And L2L does kind of one of the smart manufacturing software platforms. So the first one, the Rockwell paper, surveyed over 1,300 respondents from around the world globally. So a big macro look at some of the issues around this. And then the second paper by L2L focused more on leadership. So about 100 senior leaders from manufacturing sector. So both of these papers provided us really good information, some salient data and trend information, and highlighted the fact that we are definitely in the full throes of the fourth industrial revolution, and the pace of this smart manufacturing tidal wave is really accelerating. So we're going to pull some data from those two papers. We're going to talk about some of the key points from them and provide some of our insights, Brett, into this whole dynamic that's going on.
Yeah, no, it's getting really interesting now. Like I said, I don't know, when we first started looking at this a little bit a couple of years ago, it was kind of on the edge of happening. You know, is it really happening?
Right.
Is it not happening? And up there. But the fourth industrial revolution, you know, you'll hear it referred to, we like acronyms for everything. So 4IR or Industry 4.0. But in total, it basically promised to leverage advanced technology, utilizing AI and big data to create efficiencies. Kind of does that in a couple ways, incorporating automation and smart machines into processes. So, examples would be, robotics, would be, that type of smart machines, or sensors. Now you can put all types of sensors in these facilities, and they begin to collect and analyze data, for better decision making. So the goal being, we're moving, fairly rapidly. We'll talk about kind of maybe what some of the challenges are and whatnot in that as we go into this, but a movement in these manufacturing facilities to more of a predictive maintenance, as opposed to a reactive maintenance, and then just an overall, increased efficiency. So, one of the things that they talk about with, the smart manufacturing is that in addition is driving value by equipping workers with tools, to produce productivity, quality, and safety. So the biggest driver, we'll talk about here in a second, is at least all these 1,300 people that responded say is the overall efficiency. But there's also a big push in quality and safety, and obviously the productivity is part of efficiency. Right. But, Tim, that's happening there was a resistance early on to utilize smart pads or iPads, in the facilities, scanners, variety of things. Now that's becoming pretty common to see, all of that being collected in that way. And so I mentioned a second ago, the study shows the number one driver towards smart manufacturing or this digital transformation is an improved efficiency in the facility. So a recent McKinsey and Company report predicted that companies that successfully integrate Industry 4.0 technologies into their factory will, these are pretty big numbers. I mean, if you're listening to this and you're in the manufacturing world, if you've watched this a few times, you know that I spent 30 plus years in that space. And so these are significant numbers. If somebody would have told us we could increase our productivity, says increase labor productivity 15 to 30%, reduce machine downtime 30 to 50%. That's a huge, the cost impact of downtime, in our business, we live that every day, by not having the right skilled trades folks. But downtime is a big killer in these plants and a very costly one.
I mean, you're usually looking to try to get 1%, 2% here and there. And these are huge numbers. And McKinsey is not some fly by the night outfit.
Yeah, no, they put some detail. There's some real detail behind it. But if you think about it, Tim, when you move from predictive to reactive, reactive means basically the line is down.
Yeah.
We ran it till it's broke.
The clock's ticking.
And the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
And when it's predictive, now you don't have 20 or 30 people standing there, money's adding up, dollars are adding up for the people. You're doing it all ideally, before it breaks.
Exactly.
And that can have a significance. So the overall extending the throughput, 10 to 30%. Again, that's a huge increase. Like you said, I mean, we were trying to gain, if you were gaining, a couple percent, that had significant, value to it, to the bottom line. And then, the last one says, and a decrease in cost of quality of 10 to 20%. So, pretty easy to figure, most of that is probably coming from just less rework. You're doing it right the first time. That's always the goal in facilities anyhow. So through this automation and through a variety of analyzing data and whatnot, you just get it right more often. So those are big promises. But now that we're fully into the latest, industrial revolution, here's kind of the bigger question I think we want to unpack. Are manufacturers embracing the trend? And if so, why? And are we seeing any of these aforementioned benefits?
Yeah, so those are big promises that McKinsey makes, and companies like Rockwell, who we're good friends with Rockwell, and they do a lot of good things, but they're obviously out there promoting this capability. And now the question is, as manufacturers are embracing this, are we seeing the results that they promise? So, according to these two papers that are well researched, the answer is a resounding yes. In fact. And here's some of the data from those surveys, and we're going to hit on a few high points. We'll put the links to those two surveys, those two papers in the podcast, so you can get to them. But these are some things that we pulled away, salient points, and get some of our insights. So the Rockwell study that I mentioned, again, 1,300 survey recipients from around the world, 97%, that's a huge number. So 97% out of 1,300 plus respondents said they have plans in place today to use smart manufacturing technology. So fully embracing this. So the argument as to whether this is just a passing fancy, I think that argument has been laid to rest. 97% are going to use some sort of smart technology in the coming few years. As a matter of fact, the number one way, they list their top 8 or 10 reasons or strategies that they're going to use to drive business outcomes. The number one thing at the top of the list across all these respondents was the better use of data analytics and smart technology. If you think about manufacturing, 5 years ago, I guarantee it wasn't even maybe top 10. Mm-hmm. And now it is their number one strategic focus on driving results is the use of data analytics and smart technology. So further, here's another point that we thought was salient, that technology, data analytics, technology, smart manufacturing, AI, robotics, machine learning, all those things also noted as the top response for risk mitigation. So how are you going to mitigate the risk that you face, and they're going to be leveraging technology to mitigate risk, which obviously we focus on risk mitigation a lot at our company too. It's what are those things that if you do nothing about them have the potential to derail your company. So they're looking at technology as a way to mitigate that. And the two top things that they believe technology can help mitigate in terms of high risk are, first of all, minimizing disruption from both their workforce and supply. So this is the whole predictive.
Yep.
If you know you're going to need it, if it's telling you that this piece of equipment is starting to fail, you can get ahead of the supply chain issues instead of, as we've seen, lines being down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've had some of our clients waiting for somebody to come from out of country, flying here with a part and the expertise to be able to, and meanwhile, the whole line is down.
Oh yeah. No, the impact of supply chain when you have disruptions in production, is significant, especially when, we're coming through a long period of time here where supply chain has been really challenged, and still not, totally out of that by any stretch. And there's still long waits for a lot of products and stuff. So those disruptions definitely have a big impact.
Oh yeah. So, if you can get out ahead of something, has got a 90-day lag in supply chain and you can get ahead of that. I mean, time is money. So that's the risk mitigation number one. The second one they're going to do is this idea of they're moving more and more of their operations into the cloud. And if you're not familiar with the cloud, basically it's all your technology is housed out somewhere outside of your physical premises. It's like right now when you go to your email, when you use Outlook, when you go to Amazon, you're doing all of that. It's not actually happening on your laptop or handheld. All that's computing is being done somewhere else. So companies are going to cloud operations for increased cybersecurity concerns. Did you know, we saw this, Brett, that manufacturing is fast becoming the number one target of ransomware?
Mm.
So people are going to manufacturing facilities and saying, we're going to shut your whole manufacturing process down unless you send us a check for X amount of money. I mean, that's simplifying it, but that's what they're doing. And companies have no choice but to pay it. And also they're told, and don't say anything about it. I mean, it's literally like a hijacking sort of approach. So we talk about an event we went to where a lot of technology was demonstrated here this last fall. And the number one attraction on the whole floor, and had crowds of people, was a big demonstration about cybersecurity. So mitigating risk through technology. So the advance of technology opens you up to risk, and they can also use it to mitigate risk. So those are some of the points. There's a few more we want to touch on, Brett.
Yeah, the cybersecurities are really interesting. They're going to have to go, Jake, on the last podcast, he talked a bit about that, but they're clearly this move towards smart manufacturing. It's going to, cybersecurity and how you protect this is going to have to run parallel.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you're putting it at risk. But Tim and I operate a company called Skillwork, and so anytime we can talk about workforce shortage, we like to talk about it. And so it's interesting, this move towards automation and technology and whatnot. Most people, a lot of people, I think, probably ourselves included at times, you make an assumption, and I think a lot of the public makes an assumption that this move towards automation is going to eliminate a lot of jobs. And it's really interesting because the studies, and we're not talking a small portion, as a whopping 89% of manufacturers expect to maintain or grow employment as a result of technology adoption. So they're basically, you kind of ask yourself, well, how can that be if you're filling the plant with robots and you're doing this and you're doing that?
Yeah.
But the reality is that is a portion. There are things that are very repetitive motion that are easier done by a robotic arm or that type of thing. But the reality is you're making these plants more efficient. You're creating more throughput, and with that creates the need for more workers. And
maybe different types of workers, yes, but more.
Yep. Well, and that's part of it. The the conversations are that, they believe that, the technology can be very helpful in emerging or training. We talk a lot, Tim, about upskilling. So you have individuals in these manufacturing facilities. So it's not so much that some of the very repetitive work you are looking to reduce or eliminate, through automation. So, but some of the smart technology, some of the smart manufacturing, the ability to upskill those people and train them in it, because it becomes very intuitive. With this, it's not as cumbersome to retrain somebody that maybe, back in, you became if you were I'm trying to come up with a good example of that would make sense, in the old day, and, I came out of the food world, the meat manufacturing world. And there was a time, it was an art, it is still somewhat of an art, to be able, the guy that was on the meat line that with the knife that was boning the loin or doing those kinds of things. It was literally, you didn't just like bring a guy in tomorrow and put him in that job. You could, but your yields are going to go down quickly.
Yeah, the number of lost fingers might go up.
That too. But with this technology, the ability to teach and to train and to upskill people to do it, it's not as it's not as well.
Some of the stuff we saw, like there's the virtual manufacturing lines. You put people on that, you learn in a virtual environment instead of the real thing, so that you can get somebody up to speed quickly through the use of technology.
Exactly.
So it actually opens up more opportunities, more jobs. It gets people that are maybe in the past were locked into a frontline production worker to actually upskill through the use of technology.
Then the area and the study talks about it in quite a bit of detail, actually. And that is this, at Skillwork, we provide, what we do, we kind of recognized, we'd like to think that we were smart, and we saw this shortage of skilled trades, coming. And as this automation comes, it's just kind of like pouring gas on the fire, as they say. So 46% of manufacturers say they lack the skilled workforce to outpace the competition over the next 12 months. One of the things that this study showed, that one of the drivers, it's a little bit of FOMO, in that they're afraid their competition is getting ahead of them in this automation, and that they're going to become, which is a legitimate concern that companies should have. And one of their biggest concerns is that they lack the skill. So as you increase this automation and you go to more digital and all of these things, it requires not only more different skills inside the facility, but then the skilled individuals to keep all of that equipment running. We told the story before, Tim, back early in the days when we were starting Skillwork, and a good friend of mine that ran a very, very large food company here in the U.S. And he had shared with me, this was 6 years ago, they had bought a lot of automation and equipment, recognizing the need to do this, but then failed to realize that they didn't have the individuals, their maintenance teams just weren't at that level. Right. And he said, literally, we had equipment sitting around not running, because we spent millions of dollars on equipment and then couldn't run it. So it kind of goes parallel, kind of like we said with cybersecurity. You got to have a plan as well on upskilling, but then also finding the talent. So in short, leaders see technology as a big part of how they plan to address the workforce shortage and or skills gap. So one, because the automation eliminates some of the need for the repetitive, but then also, an opportunity to skill that. So here's the new challenge that drives, will they have the skilled workers to program, troubleshoot, and repair the advanced equipment?
Yeah, right. So, that example you gave is, we'll talk about it in the second part of this, that if you don't have a strategy and a roadmap and a plan, and not only just how you're going to implement and how you're going to have the workforce to do it, but there's a change management science involved that gets your current workforce and leadership on board with this change, because it is a big change. Another factor in technology adoption that we wanted to bring out from this is this idea of how do we achieve these targets for profitable growth while maintaining high quality? Well, technology is another answer to that. The reports that we read, both of them, noted that those who've already invested and are at the leading edge of smart manufacturing capability, they invested heavily in 2 systems that focused on quality. One of them was production monitoring. So the sensors Brett talked about to be able to actually monitor your production, your throughput, heavily, over 50% have invested technology in that. Another of 50% of the respondents says they invested heavily in quality management systems, QMS. So be able to not only track throughput, but the quality of products. And there's some amazing, systems that we've seen, and you probably have in your facility too, that at incredibly rapid speed be able to detect flawed products and be able to quickly pull those out way faster than the human eye could. So 45%, almost half of the respondents in the large Rockwell study indicated that improving quality is creating the need for accelerating digital transformation. So the drive for higher quality is actually a driver for adopting new technology. So quality, throughput, and I would also add safety. Safety is a big driver as well for why manufacturers are going to smart technology. More safe, you can take workers out of repetitive tasks. You talked about boning. I mean, tasks like that you can automate and bring your employees out of something that could potentially be dangerous. That's going to increase your safety. It attracts employees to you, lowers your mod rate, so it hits the bottom line. A lot of things that impact there. So we're gonna kind of wrap up part 1. The second part, we're going to talk about what are some of the downsides to this, and then given those factors, how do we actually implement technology in our facility? So we're going to give you a roadmap that Rockwell suggests. We think it's a pretty good one. So we'll finish it for here, but thank you so much for your time and attention to listen to the Skillwork Forum. Grateful for that. And as always, we want to ask you guys to take a look at our other podcasts if you're interested in hearing from the voice of the skilled tradesman. The Proud Skill Workers, a podcast that we put out there, we sponsor as well. The voice of the skilled tradesman, it's really important to hear what they're thinking, what they're seeing, and how these transformations are affecting them. Also, a shout out to our partners at Texas Boys Outdoors. We're the title sponsor of that show. Great guys. They focus on first responders, military veterans, special needs, and we're very proud to be partnered with these guys to give those folks an opportunity to get out in the great outdoors. So take a listen or watch their next episode. They're now on Amazon Prime. Big move for those guys. So until next time, thanks for your time and attention here on the Skillwork Forum.